This year has been a road of challenges to overcome.
But if it didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be as strong as I am right now.
It's a lot of hard work and is just as much mental as physical.
Once your mind and body come together, you can be unstoppable.
Hello and welcome to the ASICS and NAMI, the importance of having a sound mind panel discussion. I'm your host, Carrie Tellefson, and I'm honored to be here today. ASICS and NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, have partnered again to raise awareness and funds to break the stigma around mental illness. From November 1st through December 31st, ASICS is matching all donations made via checkout at asics.com, up to a total of $500,000. As part of the ASICS commitment, we wanted to bring together NAMI and ASICS to hold a meaningful discussion about the importance of a sound mind. Today in our panel discussion, we have ASICS elite athletes, Dina Castor, the American record holder in the marathon and bronze medalist from the 2004 Olympic Marathon. We also have one of America's greatest long jumpers, Kate Hall. And joining the ASICS elite athletes, we have NAMI's Associate Medical Director, Dr. Christine Crawford. Thank you all for being here and for sharing in the discussion of the importance of mental health, how having a sound mind is critical to having a sound body, and what actions we can take to prioritize our mental health and help those who suffer from mental illness. I'm going to begin with you, Dr. Crawford. Let's start with the current situation of being in this global pandemic. What effects do you think the pandemic has had on the world as a whole today?
You know, this pandemic has been incredibly difficult for everyone, adults, children, everybody. And I think what's been really challenging is that it's difficult for people to tolerate uncertainty. And there's been so much uncertainty that we face over the course of this pandemic. And as a result of that, increased rates of anxiety certainly has occurred among all of us. And we can all relate to that because we've been living this pandemic. And also the grief and the sadness that's been coming along with some of the lives that have been lost and some of the loved ones that we all have who have been affected by this pandemic. And so having that stress hanging over you, the sadness, the anxiety, it can really take a toll on how it is that you're able to function day to day. And the fact that this has been going on for so long, it really has just weared a lot of people down, and it can make it seem for some as though there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And so that's why it's so important for us to have these sort of conversations so that everyone knows that they're not alone in experiencing the sadness, the anxiety, the frustration and anger that has come along with this pandemic.
Yeah, you said the light at the end of the tunnel. I like that. I'm going to move to you, Kate, because you've been through a lot over the pandemic. You had ACL repair, and as an athlete, regardless of the time, it is never fun to be injured, and especially on a year for you, a professional athlete, heading into an Olympic Games. So what has helped you during this time find the most balance, sound mind balance during a difficult time?
I mean, I think it's one of those things where you don't really know what it's like until you go through it. I have known many people who have had injuries and long recoveries, and it's debilitating. But I didn't know what it was like for myself until I went through it. But for me, I think what kind of helped me the most was just from day one, I said, no matter what, I was going to try as hard as I can to get back as soon as I possibly could. And I think in that situation, you don't have that physical strength, so you need to rely on that mental strength. You need to have that balance, because I couldn't get off the couch without help for like 2 weeks, and I wasn't walking without crutches for like a month. So I needed to be mentally strong, and I needed to have that sound mind in order to get through. And that's exactly what I have done and continue to do today. And I'm still working as hard as I can to be at 100%, and I'm getting really close. And I think the coolest thing is I can honestly say that I feel like I'm going to be stronger than ever. And I can honestly say as well that my mind has never been so sound. And I think that's because of everything I have endured through this journey and this long recovery process. So I'm excited to be back to it soon.
I love hearing that you feel stronger even through tough times. Dina, we've had some tough times as parents. We'll get into your athletic career, but as parents, the pandemic's been tough this last year and a half. And you have Piper, who is almost 11 years old. And you and I had to become teachers during the pandemic. And we've laughed about this, and it's not easy. How did you keep your sound mind and just keep it all together at home when it was really, really hard?
Thank you, Carrie. And Kate, I hope you felt us with you every step of the healing process. We were cheering you on the whole time. This has been such an amazing month having ASICS and NAMI join forces. So it's been an absolute pleasure to connect with Dr. Crawford and just get her sound and peaceful guidance through these hard times. But I nearly lost my mind homeschooling my daughter on a daily basis. And it was one of our greatest challenges, but I'm one to always find the silver lining in things. And I found every time we had that little study break, we got up, we went outside, and I ran around the block while she was riding the bike next to me, moving our bodies. And then the conversations, the tension eased and the conversation flowed. So it was really relying on what I've relied on for my own personal health, both physical and mental, through my career as a professional athlete, that allowed me to know that that was also critical as we were holed up here in lockdown orders through the pandemic, getting in our studying, the demanding schoolwork, and also getting out and making sure we were getting fresh air and moving our bodies. And that's really when the tension eased between us. And the conversation flowed, and then we were able to sit back down and get some more productive schoolwork in each day. So it was really beautiful to see that firsthand unfold in a 10-year-old little girl, that using the blessings of the sports that it has taught me to be able to guide my daughter during really critical times.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot about that, how moving our body can help us keep our sound mind. But Dr. Crawford, I think I'd like to dig into that a little bit more. Activity is so important, but what are some other actions that we can take individually, but even just as a whole? What can we do to continue this move forward on mental health and mental illness?
Yeah, I think setting up a routine that allows you to be able to carve out time just for yourself so that you can recharge your batteries, recharge your mind so that you can remain focused and remain ready to go for each and every day. And as I mentioned before, with all of the uncertainty that we're living through right now, having a routine, knowing what you're going to do day in and day out, and knowing that there is definitely going to be time for you at the end of the day can make a huge difference in terms of reducing some of that anxiety and some of that tension that Dina had mentioned as well. So in addition to having a routine, trying to incorporate things that recharge your battery is so important. So as we've already talked about, moving your body, finding different activities that you enjoy, that's the important thing. Activities that you enjoy. We oftentimes think about physical activity and think that we need to follow one particular kind of template for that. But if you're just moving your body by dancing, by playing with your kids, as Dina had mentioned, by riding a bike, whatever it is that you need to do, build that into your routine so that you can feel really good. And I think the other thing that's so important for us to do during these times is to really talk honestly and openly about how we're feeling. We're so accustomed to asking each other the question, well, how are you doing? How have things been? And we're so used to responding with oh, I'm fine, I'm okay. But once we start being really honest and truthful about what it is that we're experiencing and respond to those questions in an honest way and say things like, well, the last couple of days have been really tough for me. I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety. It's hard for me to sleep. I have so much on my mind. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And just by mentioning what you're going through, that will kind of light the fire for the other person to do the same in response. And having that dialogue, opening up, having that conversation can make you feel well supported and make you feel a little bit better. And you get kind of an energy boost from that. And you may pay it forward too. You may think to yourself, wow, maybe I should do that with all of the interactions that I have with my friends and family, because I want to give them that gift of knowing that they're supported, that they're not alone in this. And the only way we could do that is to talk to each other and to make sure that we're well by having this routine that includes physical activity.
Oh, routine. That is sticking out so much. I love routine. I love an early morning run or a walk, whatever I can do to get out the door. But you said dance, and that made me just immediately smile because when I see Dina, we like to dance. So every time we kind of reminisce about, racing in Europe and having fun afterwards and making sure we're enjoying what we're doing in life, because let's face it, being in the professional world, no matter what you do, it gets stressful. So for us, we would always find somewhere to go and, let loose and have fun. But Dina, I coach a lot of athletes, and it's been really fun over the last year or two since your book came out. They'll ask what book motivates or inspires, and I always recommend your book because it is just amazing. I listen to your book. I also have it in hard copy so I can read it and just pick through it. But you talk a lot about how having a positive mentality has played such a huge role in your life in general, but also how it gave you that hugely competitive attitude and edge. So can you kind of talk about that for us?
Yeah, I actually think we are so obsessed with our physical training programs, our gym memberships, what our coaches and trainers are telling us what to do physically, and we miss the mark on making sure our mental fitness is also super sharp. So, as Dr. Crawford was speaking, I think one of the greatest strategies that has worked for me over the past years is something I call strategic joy. And it's making sure you're spontaneously dancing in the middle of the day when things get tense, and making sure you have inspirational quotes and people in your lives, like strategically placing these great things, these things that resonate with you, placing them in your lives, whether it's flowers on your desk when you're in the midst of a really hard project, or whether it's putting on Italian opera while you're making pizza during pizza night and demanding that everyone in the family try to hit the high notes. It's like making sure that these daily things we're doing, these routines we're going through, don't lose their charm. Make sure that they have joy sparked in them when you're doing it. And you can manufacture joy in that way. And when you do that, I really feel that you are subconsciously telling yourself you're deserving of that joy. So your self-worth becomes greater, your self-esteem is greater, your productivity gets enhanced, and an end result in all of this is a little bit of happiness. So it's just one of those little things I do in my day, just strategically add joy so that even the most mundane things as doing laundry and mopping the floor become really fun. Like your mop becomes your dancing partner, if we're going to keep on that theme.
I love it. Kate, do you dance when you're a little bit stressed?
Yeah, but not very well. I'm a horrible dancer.
Doesn't matter what you look like. But
I usually do that myself.
I love it. I love it. Being a professional athlete though, Kate, you have a lot of pressure to perform and to be there, right? And when we're injured and we're sick and things like that, we're not on the start line or on the runway or whatever it is that we do to compete. Has the pressure ever gotten to you? And does your mental strength contribute to your success both on and off the track?
Yeah, I mean, pressure has definitely gotten to me before. I think it's gotten to everyone at some point in life. I also feel like pressure can either make or break you at times. But I feel like for the most part, for me, I thrive off of pressure. I thrive off adrenaline and nerves. And that can be hard sometimes because weeks in advance before a competition, I'm just feeling those nerves setting in, and it's all I can focus on. And I'm just thinking about the competition and I can't really focus on anything else that's going on in my life. But that's just because I want to do well and I have such high expectations for myself. But in the moment when I'm on the runway or at the starting line, I'm able to just block everything out and just utilize that adrenaline to my advantage. And it hasn't always been like that for me. It's been a process of kind of getting to that point where I'm able to just block everything out. And a couple of things that I've done to kind of help with that is a lot of deep breathing the day before or even the morning of to kind of get the heart rate down and kind of get that balance. And another thing I've done is visualization, which really helps me just focus on what I need to do. So that's made a huge difference for me. And then in that moment, I am just ready to do my best and use that adrenaline to my advantage and do as well as I can in the moment.
Oh, I love that. I can just see you getting ready to take off, and it gets me all excited. I can't wait for 2022 to see how things go. But um, Dr. Crawford, she's kind of alluded to some things, but one thing that we haven't mentioned is our support system. And as elite athletes, as individuals, we need to find people that not only hold us accountable, but are there to just cheer us up regardless of what the result is, or if we've gotten a new job or how we're doing. We just need those people in our lives. So what kind of support system would you recommend that we all try to find in life?
Yeah, I think it's so important to kind of look out of your inner circle and your outer circle to see who really is there that you best connect with, that fills your cup up, that fills you up with joy. A lot of athletes are surrounded by people all of the time, especially elite athletes, and it could be really difficult to figure out who is really there for you, who you can connect with, who makes you feel less stressed out and more at ease, as opposed to people who may be putting that pressure on you or making you feel more intense. And so that could be a really difficult process because identifying those people may mean that you may not have to be or may not be able to be as close with some other folks. And that could be an awkward position to be in. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for your mental health. And if you aren't being accountable to yourself and putting yourself first, then everything else is not going to fall into place. So, making sure that you are identifying people within your family, your friends, and also people that you train with, your coaches, your co-competitors. It doesn't matter who it is, as long as you feel that at the end of a conversation you have with them, that you feel better, that you feel uplifted. And it's so important for us to kind of check in and kind of do a gut check sometimes and to really look at these people to figure out who lifts us up and who doesn't. So support can mean a lot of different things, but it's whatever makes you feel joy at the end of the day.
Well, and Dr. Crawford, we were talking with you beforehand about, your running and in your workouts and how you were saying you didn't know if you wanted to run with Dina and I. And I don't even know if Kate would want to run with Dina and I. And Kate, we don't want to be in the gym maybe with you doing the lifts that you have to do, but we all can do things together, whether it's calling each other and saying, hey, I'm going to get out for my workout. Or like Dr. Crawford, we said we could run next to each other on a treadmill. You run your pace, we run our own pace. And, just things like that. I think it's so important to have that support system. I know that I've had it growing up with my family, and a lot of times people will say, I'll just be behind you, and just knowing you're out on the road while I'm out on the road running, it's so important. So I'm going to go back to you, Kate, because I think it's important to hear exactly who you had in your corner last year, because we know you're on this comeback. We know that you wanted to make that Olympic team, and you made the finals of the Olympic trials in 2016. So you were taking that next step to hopefully be on that US team in 2020, and it didn't happen. Life happened, right? So who was in your corner, making sure that you keep those goals in check, that you keep your mind where you want it to be, and that, you're ready hopefully to make the World Championships this summer, which is right here in the US this year?
Yeah, I had such an amazing support system. I mean, as soon as I found out that I tore my ACL, I mean, my family was there for me. My husband, my coach played a huge role in that. As soon as we found out, he knew of an amazing doctor and set me up with him just immediately. And just every step of the way, they were there for me. And I never had to wonder if I had someone in my corner helping me out. And my ASICS family was always there for me every step of the way, supporting me. And it just made my my surgery and my recovery process just so much easier. And yeah, it just feels really good to have such an amazing support system there for me all the time.
I love that. Dina, you've been chasing records now, not only as a pro, well, in high school, college, a pro, and now not retired necessarily altogether, but even up to a couple years ago, you were setting master's records and doing some great stuff. Can you tell us, like, your husband is your coach, you guys coach athletes, you're still supporting so many people, but who's that person that kind of still is like, Dina, maybe a little cranky today, we need you to get out the door, or we see that you've been blue for a while, let's figure out how to get you back on track?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been fortunate to have such a great support system in my family and the coaches that I've chosen over the years, but it is about choices, right? I mean, whenever, if you don't have a lot of support from your family, go out and find it. And I think I got great advice years ago from a friend in New York City, Peter Roth, who said, don't expect you and your husband to be everything to each other all the time. He was going to marry us here in Mammoth Lakes, California. And it was such great advice because it really allowed me to step back in any different moment that I'm in my life to say, who can I call on right now? Who am I going to go grab a coffee with? Sometimes it's my sister. Sometimes it's a girlfriend. Sometimes it's my husband. Sometimes it's just talking with my daughter as we're running and biking next to each other. So I think it's casting out your net and seeing who you need in a given moment. And sometimes it's just sitting with uncomfortable feelings too. And I think Kate touched on it, that she's so invested that she feels that pressure and that adrenaline. And it just made me think that sometimes we're so invested. It's why we're moved to tears when we reach our goals and we feel that satisfaction. But it's also why we can get extremely disappointed with the outcomes. And just knowing that whether it's a high or a low that we're experiencing, it's because we care. It's because we're invested. So it kind of takes the emotion out of it when we step back and really look at those struggles that we can find ourselves in. It's because we care an awful lot. And it also is the reason that disappointment doesn't have such a forever grip on me, but also why I was able to deal with loneliness and help others deal with loneliness during the pandemic. Loneliness is just a sign that we really care about relationships and people in our lives. So pick up the phone, FaceTime, get on a platform. These days, it's so easy to get on a platform where we can speak face to face. Reach out to someone and just say hi. We don't have to sit here and wallow in our discomforts. There's people around us. We're social beings that we need people in our lives, and it's so easy to reach out and connect during this technological era. So I think really just stepping back and sometimes just sitting in that discomfort, but analyzing it from a more authentic place so it doesn't have such a grip on you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have done so much over the internet in the last year and a half with meetings or just family get-togethers. And Dr. Crawford, I think I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this. We have this great partnership with ASICS and NAMI going on. And it would be interesting to hear what role you think employers and brands like ASICS fill when it comes to mental health and illness. Like, what can we do to make our companies better and our coworkers better?
Yeah, so making sure that we create environments, that we create settings in which talking about mental health, talking about how you're feeling emotionally is okay. And one way in which we can ensure that organizations, companies are able to do that for their employees is to be very mindful of the language that we use when we're talking about people who are living with mental health related conditions. And there's so much stigma that's associated with mental health that it makes it difficult for people to want to disclose what challenges they may be facing and some difficulties that they may be experiencing with their employers because of the stigma and because of the language that is used that is reinforcing this idea that perhaps this is not a welcoming environment to talk about anxiety, depression, to talk about trauma. But the more that we can have open conversations, the more that employers and people in leadership are willing to share some of their own personal experiences and what it's been like for them, especially during this time of the pandemic, where a lot of people can feel as though, wow, it's impressive that people are moving forward, they're always getting ahead, but I'm really affected by this pandemic. if leadership can talk about the impact it's had on them emotionally and how they've been able to cope, that would certainly give others permission to come forward about what they've been going through. It will make it such that they get the sense that their company cares about these discussions because we're seeing leadership do that. And what's so incredible during this technological era is with social media. And, this is such a great company right now, ASICS, the fact that we're having this conversation right now, and to be able to communicate the importance of a sound mind, the importance of mental health through social media as people are scrolling through their social media accounts and maybe feeling alone in this experience of having depression and anxiety, but seeing these messages, hearing these conversations from an organization like this can really be huge and hopefully create this ripple effect that kind of goes through people in a variety of different communities. And then in turn, they'll be able to have those conversations within their own workplaces as well.
I love that. You ladies, Kate and Dina, have been with this great company, ASICS, for a long time as athletes. But if you both can touch on what it means to be in a company that's built on the ethos of sound mind, sound body. And Kate, let's start with you because you haven't been with ASICS quite as long as Dina has. But, Dina, you've been with ASICS for 20 years. So we're going to start with Kate first.
Well, for me, I think having a sound mind means that everything is in sync. That in that moment, I am exactly who I should be and where I should be, and nothing can change that. And even if I'm struggling or going through a hard time in my life, I know that even though it's going to be hard, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to get through it and maybe even become stronger in the long run because I have a sound mind.
I love it. How about you, Dina? 20 years with this great company.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be with a company that not just provides products that I really believe in, but really is at the basis of everything that I stand for. And for 20 years working on my mind in particular to get the best out of my body and getting out, which is why I haven't retired yet, getting out every day. Even though it's a little slower and sloppier than a decade ago, but getting out every day and pushing my physical limits so that I can exercise my mind, so that my optimism and my perseverance and my resiliency is on demand every day. I think I often joke that I don't care if my arms get flabby, but I do not want my mental muscle to atrophy ever. And so to live that out under the ASICS brand, that since the end of World War II, when this brand was founded by Mr. Onitsuka, that this is the motto he lived by, and he would be so proud of where the company stands today, continues to stand.
Oh, I would agree to that. And we would just want to thank you, ladies, for taking the time. This has just been a joy to get to know you, Dr. Crawford, and to see you, Kate and Dina. Thank you all. We want to remind all of you who are going to get after it this winter season, or if you're just excited to get some new gear, when you go to asics.com, they're going to donate. And we're going to try, if you guys donate, we're going to try to raise $500,000. So every time you buy something at asics.com, you can add a donation there. And it's good through December 31st. And we'll donate as much as we can to NAMI. And we just want to thank you all again. This is pretty an amazing opportunity right here. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it. We also want to remind you all, if you want to learn about anything else about mental health or you need mental health resources, just go to NAMI.org and it will give you all sorts of great information there. Thanks again, you guys. Happy holidays.